Are you practicing excessively and just hoping that magically your turkey calling is going to get better and you're not exactly sure what to do to make some progress? Here's a video for you. Hi, Jeff Frederick here. Today I'm going to talk about how much and how you should practice with your mouth calls. First off, I'm going to go over call placement. Then I'm going to go over the way that I teach people how to do it, which is a level call in the mouth, not a tipped call more forward in the mouth. Once you understand this is a simple musical instrument, we're going to talk about running straight tones, doing tone transitions, and then starting the tone perfectly. Once you get really good at those tones, then when you listen to the real turkey and apply those sounds to it and try and mimic them, you're going to be so much better at copying the sounds that the real turkey makes. So first of all, let's talk about call placement. The way I teach people to put the call in their mouth is to get it back in your mouth where your tongue hits the roof of your mouth when you say the letter K. So much of the information I see out there is wanting you to put this mouth call in the palate part of the mouth, the main palate, which is really there's a notch up in your mouth. And to me, that is way too far forward in the mouth, and your call is going to not be sitting level, and the air is going to hit the reeds at an angle instead of going past the reeds when the call is more level. This relates to how much you really need to practice with a mouth call. The way I think about it, if you put the call placement and the tones in front of turkey sounds and you get the call back in your mouth and level, you are not going to have to practice as much. The other methods of running a mouth call, which are you're putting the call a little more forward in the mouth, the call is going to be tipped a little bit more, and the end of your tongue is going to be somewhat directly manipulating those reeds. The problem with running the call in that fashion is it's going to take so much more practice to become where the action is kind of subconscious, where you're just doing it and you're not thinking about it. Because every time your tongue goes away from the reeds and comes back, any minute shift in the call itself, or the tongue coming back up, or a slight variation in the airflow is going to produce a little bit different sound than the note before it. So it's going to be harder to achieve note-to-note consistency when you're calling in that fashion. And the only way you can really do that and start sounding like a turkey and getting good with the call is if you practice an awful lot, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. The way that I teach people, or my hope is that once you get the basics down and you learn how to do this in this fashion, in general, you shouldn't have to run a call constantly, 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 and practice for hours and hours in order to stay good or improve your calling a little bit. Okay, so treating this little gadget like a musical instrument. It's quite simple. So when a young person is going into band in high school or grade school, the band teacher doesn't hand them their clarinet or saxophone or whatever instrument they're going to play, say, this is how you make sound on it, and then hand them the sheet music and say, okay, here's the song, now play it. Now, granted, I think that a turkey call is a little bit simpler process than learning to play an instrument. But if you treat this thing like an instrument, everything that you do after you get the basics down is going to be so much easier. You're going to be able to do the clucks, the cuts, the yelps, all the different little sounds that we all want to make on these little gadgets. So let's start with making some straight tones on this little musical instrument. And this is not for beginners solely. This is for anybody running a mouth call. The beauty of running straight tones like that is, first of all, it teaches you the 3 levels of sound. You're going to hold your tongue in one way, you'll get a higher pitch. You're going to hold your tongue in another way, you'll get a medium sound, and then you'll get the rasp. And what that is doing by trying to hold that tone as long as and steady as possible is your brain is starting to understand cause and effect. And when you start out doing your straight tones, you'll notice that you're going to waver through that tone a little bit. So what you want to do is keep striving to hold it as pure as possible, because then your subconscious mind is starting to understand the cause and effect of what's happening that you can't see inside of your mouth. Okay, so once you are getting pretty good at running straight tones, and you don't have to become perfect, but it's the purpose of your brain understanding cause and effect that's important. So the more pure you can hold each level of sound, like 3 different levels, the better off you're going to be. Now, if you want to even get better, the next thing you can practice is tone transitions. So start practicing going from the high to the mid, and then start practicing going from the mid to the low or the rasp, and try and transition back and forth through some of those tones. So you can see how, as you get better at doing those transitions, your brain is learning that cause and effect of what is happening inside your mouth as these sounds change. The next thing to practice on your straight tones is having an abrupt, clean start and end. This is something that I think like a competition caller should do, because like with elk calling and coyote howling, it's a little easier than turkey sounds because you can ease into that tone. You're starting with a larger air chamber and you're ending in the high. Now, for like the kiki run of the turkey, you got to start perfect and pure right in that high note. So if you practice your starts and stops, there's another subconscious cause and effect that your brain starts picking up on, and it becomes a lot less difficult when the turkey's coming in, or let's say you're up on stage contest calling. So if you start practicing starting out pure, where you're not easing into the sound, you're starting to develop a lot of mastery over this simple musical instrument.